The arrival. The anomaly. The warning alarms screamed through the Krellian border station Delta 7. Commander Vex Thor's 4 eyes widened as he stared at the sensor display. Something impossible was happening in the void between stars. Space itself was tearing open. For 300 years, the Krellian Empire had ruled this sector of the galaxy. They had conquered 47 different species. They had mapped every star, every planet, every asteroid. Nothing surprised them anymore. Until today. The spatial rift expanded rapidly, glowing with energy that should not exist. Vex Thor had seen many things in his military career, but never anything like this. The tear in space grew larger, reaching across thousands of miles. Energy poured out in waves that made his instruments go crazy. Then, something emerged from the rift. A ship, but not like any vessel in the Krellian database. It was massive, built with angles and armor plating that seemed designed for pure function rather than beauty. The hull was dark gray, almost black, covered with weapon systems that Vex Thor could not identify. Strange markings decorated the side in an unknown language. The ship drifted forward as the rift closed behind it. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, the vessel's engines ignited with a blue glow that Vex Thor had never seen before. The ship moved with surprising grace for something so large. Commander Vex Thor activated the communication system. All unknown vessels, this is Krellian Border Command. You have entered Imperial space without authorization. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed. There was a long pause. Then a voice came through the speakers. The translation system struggled for a moment before making sense of the alien language. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Starship Defiance. We mean no harm. Our ship was pulled through a spatial anomaly. We are far from home and request safe passage while we determine our location. Vex Thor felt his skin plates tighten with anger. Every species that entered Krellian space said the same thing at first. They all claimed to be lost or peaceful. Then they learned the truth. In this part of the galaxy, there was only one rule: submit to the Empire or be crushed. Captain Chen, you will power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your ship and crew now belong to the Krellian Empire. Resistance will result in immediate destruction. The human response. On the bridge of the UNS Defiance, Captain Sarah Chen stood calmly, despite the chaos around her. She was a veteran of 20 years in the United Nations Space Force. She had commanded exploration missions to distant stars and defended Earth's colonies from pirates and raiders. But she had never faced anything like this. Her ship had been on a routine patrol near the edge of human space when the anomaly appeared. Before they could react, the Defiance was pulled through a tunnel of twisted space and time. Now, they were somewhere completely unknown, facing an empire that claimed to own this entire region. "Captain," said Lieutenant Torres from the tactical station, "I'm reading multiple hostile vessels approaching our position. Looks like they're surrounding us." "How many?" Sarah asked. 12 ships so far. More are coming. They're all armed and moving into attack formation." Sarah looked at her crew. They were scared, but holding together. She had trained with most of them for years. They trusted her to get them through this. She could not let them down. "Defensive systems only," she ordered. "Do not fire unless fired upon. We need to understand the situation before we make it worse." The communication officer, Ensign Park, spoke up. "Captain, the aliens are demanding we surrender. They say this entire sector belongs to their empire. Tell them we are peaceful explorers who arrived here by accident. We only want to repair our ship and find our way home." Sarah watched the alien vessels on the main screen. They were smaller than the Defiance, but numerous. Their design was efficient, built for war rather than exploration. Everything about them suggested a military culture that valued conquest over cooperation. The response came back quickly and with more anger. "Your intentions are irrelevant. You are now property of the Krellian Empire. Power down your weapons or we will open fire." Sarah felt a cold anger building in her chest. Throughout human history, there had always been empires that believed they owned everything they could touch, bullies who thought might made right. She had not traveled across the galaxy to bow down to another one. "Lieutenant Torres," she said calmly, "what's our tactical assessment?" Marcus studied his instruments. Their weapons are energy-based, similar to plasma technology we've seen before. Shields appear to be standard electromagnetic barriers. Based on their approach patterns, I'd say their tactics are straightforward, overwhelming force with numerical superiority. And against our systems? Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "Captain, our quantum shields and rail cannons are at least 50 years ahead of anything they're showing. If it comes to a fight, we can handle 12 ships, maybe more." Sarah nodded. She did not want to fight, but she would not surrender her crew to slavery either. She had to find a middle path, some way to show strength without starting a war. "This is Captain Chen to Krellian forces. We will not power down our weapons. We will not surrender. But we are willing to negotiate peaceful passage through your territory. We have no interest in your empire or your conflicts. We only want to go home." The first strike. Commander Vexthor could not believe what he was hearing. No species had ever refused a Krellian ultimatum, not in 300 years. This human captain was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Either way, she needed to learn her place. "All ships," he commanded. "Target the unknown vessel. Fire warning shots across their bow. Let them see what Krellian weapons can do." 6 of the Krellian ships opened fire simultaneously. Brilliant red energy beams lanced through space toward the human vessel. The shots were deliberately aimed to miss, passing within a few hundred meters of the Defiance's hull. It was a show of force meant to terrify enemies into submission. But the human ship did not flee. It did not surrender. Instead, something remarkable happened. A shimmering blue field appeared around the Defiance. The field was unlike any shield technology Vexthor had ever encountered. It seemed to exist slightly out of phase with normal space. When the next volley of Krellian weapons hit it, the energy simply dispersed harmlessly, absorbed into the quantum matrix without even making the field flicker. "Impossible," Vexthor whispered. On the Defiance, Sarah watched the alien weapons splash uselessly against their shields. The quantum barrier technology was humanity's greatest defensive achievement. It had taken decades to develop and was still classified as top secret. Now, it might be the only thing keeping her crew alive. "Captain," Marcus reported, "their weapons are barely registering on our shields. It would take sustained fire from all 12 ships for several hours to even weaken our defenses." Sarah made a decision. She did not want to hurt anyone, but these aliens needed to understand that humans were not easy prey. "Mr. Torres," she said calmly, "target the lead vessel. 1 rail cannon shot. Disable their weapons, but do not destroy the ship." Marcus's fingers moved across his controls. The rail cannon was another piece of human technology that had no equal in this sector. It fired solid projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed using electromagnetic acceleration. The kinetic energy alone was devastating. "Firing," Marcus said quietly. A streak of light crossed the distance between ships almost too fast to see. The tungsten rod struck the lead Krellian vessel precisely where Marcus had aimed. The impact tore through the ship's weapon arrays, leaving the rest of the vessel intact but completely disarmed. Commander Vexthor watched in shock as his flagship's weapons were destroyed in a single shot. His sensors could barely track what had hit them. The speed, the precision, the power, it was all far beyond Krellian capabilities. "All ships, fall back," he ordered. "Do not engage further. I must report this to High Command immediately." The Empire learns fear. The news traveled through the Krellian Empire at the speed of light. An unknown vessel had appeared from nowhere and defeated a border patrol without taking any damage. The implications were staggering. In the Imperial Palace on the capital world of Corellia Prime, Admiral Thex Var studied the combat footage again and again. He was the supreme commander of all Corellian military forces. He had personally led the conquest of 17 worlds. He had never lost a battle. But watching this human ship move and fight, he felt something he had not experienced in decades: uncertainty. "The technology is completely unknown to us," reported his science advisor. "The shields operate on quantum principles we barely understand. The weapons use kinetic energy in ways that should not be possible. And that's just what they've shown us. They may have capabilities we haven't seen yet." Admiral Thex Var was silent for a long moment. The Corellian Empire had been built on one simple truth: they had better weapons and ships than everyone else. That technological superiority—
The revelation. The fleet arrives. 2 days passed in tense silence. Captain Sarah Chen used every moment to prepare her crew and study everything they could learn about the Corellian Empire. The encrypted messages from the Xine resistance provided valuable intelligence about enemy tactics, ship capabilities, and the political structure of the empire that held dozens of species in chains. The Defiance remained on high alert, drifting slowly through the void while sensors monitored all approaches. Sarah knew the Corellians would return with overwhelming force. She just needed to be ready when they did. Lieutenant Marcus Torres looked up from his tactical display. "Captain, we have incoming signatures. Multiple vessels dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of sensor range." "How many?" Sarah asked, though she already suspected the answer would not be good. 53 ships, Marcus reported grimly. "All military class. They're forming a spherical formation around our position. Looks like they plan to trap us from every direction." Sarah nodded slowly. She had expected this. The Corellians could not allow a single ship to defy them without responding with crushing force. Their entire empire was built on the fear of their military superiority. If they showed any weakness, subject species might start getting ideas about rebellion. On the main view screen, the Corellian fleet became visible. 53 warships, each bristling with weapons and armored for battle. They moved with practiced precision, taking positions that would allow them to fire from every angle simultaneously. It was an impressive display of military coordination. Ensign Park turned from the communication station. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's marked as a diplomatic channel." "Put it through," Sarah ordered. The view screen changed to show a Corellian male who looked older and more decorated than the border commander they had met before. His uniform was elaborate, covered with medals and symbols of rank. His 4 eyes studied Sarah with cold intelligence. "I am Admiral Thex Var, Supreme Commander of the Corellian Imperial Fleet. You have the honor of addressing the highest military authority in this sector of space." Sarah stood calmly, meeting his gaze without fear. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Starship Defiance. We are peaceful explorers who only wish to repair our ship and return home." Thex Var's expression did not change. "Captain Chen, let us speak honestly. You are surrounded by 53 warships. You have nowhere to run and no hope of victory if we choose to attack. However, I am authorized to offer you an alternative to destruction." Sarah waited silently, knowing whatever came next would reveal the true nature of this empire. "Share your technology with us," Thex Var continued. "Tell us the location of your homeworld and the extent of your civilization. In exchange, we will grant you safe passage through our territory and provide you with the resources needed to repair your vessel." The price of knowledge. Sarah felt a cold anger settling in her stomach. The offer sounded reasonable on the surface, but she understood the reality beneath the words. If the Corellians learned about Earth's location and humanity's technological capabilities, they would eventually come with fleets to conquer and enslave. The Empire did not make deals with equals. They only identified new targets. "Your offer is noted, Admiral," Sarah said carefully. "However, I need time to consult with my crew and consider the implications. Surely you can understand that revealing the location of my homeworld is not a decision I can make lightly." Thex Var's eyes narrowed slightly. "You have one of your Earth hours to decide, Captain. After that, I will assume you have chosen destruction over cooperation. I hope you make the wise choice." The transmission ended. Sarah turned to her senior officers who had gathered on the bridge during the conversation. Their faces showed a mixture of concern and determination. "He's lying," Lieutenant Torres said immediately. "Even if we give them what they want, they'll still try to capture or destroy us. That's not an admiral interested in cooperation. That's a predator deciding how to catch his prey." Commander Elena Vasquez, the ship's first officer, nodded in agreement. "Everything design resistance told us confirms it. The Krellians have never honored a treaty with a species they saw as inferior. They conquer or they destroy. There's no third option in their worldview." Sarah walked to the large view screen showing the enemy fleet surrounding them. 53 warships, against 1. By any conventional military calculation, they were hopelessly outmatched. But humanity had never won its greatest victories through conventional thinking. "Mr. Torres," she said quietly, "what's our actual combat capability against this fleet?" Marcus pulled up detailed tactical projections. "Captain, our quantum shields can withstand sustained fire from all 53 ships for approximately 42 minutes before showing signs of degradation. Our rail cannons have effective range and accuracy beyond their weapon systems. We could disable or destroy approximately 15 to 20 ships before our shields failed." "And then?" Sarah asked. "Then we'd be vulnerable. Their numbers would overwhelm us eventually. We might take down 30 ships total before the Defiance was destroyed." Sarah turned to her chief engineer, Lieutenant Chen Park, no relation to the captain despite sharing a surname. "What about our quantum drive? Could we escape?" Park shook his head reluctantly. "Captain, the spatial anomaly that brought us here damaged the quantum drive's dimensional calibration systems. I can get us into faster-than-light travel, but I can't guarantee where we'd end up. We might jump directly into a star or a planet. Without proper calibration, the quantum drive is as dangerous as staying here. So, our options are surrender, fight and die, or blind jump and probably die," Commander Vasquez summarized grimly. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Her crew watched her, waiting for the decision that would determine all their fates. She thought about Earth, about the billions of people who trusted their military to protect them. She thought about the Zine and other enslaved species hoping for someone to stand against the Empire. She thought about the principles that the United Nations represented. "There's a fourth option," she said finally. "We show them exactly why humanity survived every challenge we've ever faced. We show them that superior numbers don't guarantee victory when you're fighting people who refuse to give up." The human strategy. Sarah called an emergency meeting of all department heads in the conference room adjacent to the bridge. Around the table sat the officers who would execute whatever plan she decided upon. These were the best and brightest the United Nations Space Force had to offer. "The Krellians think they understand warfare," Sarah began. "They've conquered dozens of species using the same basic strategy. Overwhelming force, numerical superiority. They've never lost because they've never faced anyone who could match their technology or challenge their tactics." "But we can," Marcus said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "We have advantages they can't even comprehend. Our shields are decades beyond theirs. Our weapons have greater range and accuracy. Our sensors can track targets they can't even detect. But our biggest advantage is something they've never encountered before." "What's that?" asked Lieutenant Park. Sarah smiled grimly. "Human creativity and our absolute refusal to play by anyone else's rules." She brought up a holographic display of the surrounding space. The 53 Krellian ships glowed red in perfect spherical formation. The Defiance sat at the center, seemingly trapped. "They're surrounding us because every species they fought tried to break through the encirclement and escape. That's the conventional response. So they've positioned their strongest ships along the most likely escape vectors. See here and here. Those are their heavy cruisers with the most powerful weapons." "So we don't try to escape," Commander Vasquez said, catching on to the plan. "We do something they won't expect." "Exactly," Sarah confirmed. "Mr. Torres, can our rail cannons fire in a full 360-degree pattern?" Marcus consulted his tactical systems. "Yes, Captain, we have weapons coverage in every direction. The rail cannon turrets can rotate and target simultaneously." "And our shields can extend in all directions equally?" "Yes, the quantum field is omnidirectional." Sarah's smile grew wider. "Then we turn their trap into our advantage. They've positioned themselves in a perfect sphere, thinking it makes escape impossible. What they've actually done is cluster their ships close enough together that we can hit multiple targets without moving." The officers around the table began to understand.
The Krellian formation that looked so impressive was actually a tactical mistake when facing an enemy with superior range and defensive capabilities. "We stay right here," Sarah explained. "We let them come to us. When they attack, we defend and counterstrike. We destroy their ships methodically, starting with their command ships and heavy cruisers. We turn this from a battle of movement into a battle of attrition. And in a battle of attrition, superior technology wins every time." "But Captain," Lieutenant Park interjected, "even with our advantages, we can't destroy 53 ships without taking damage. Eventually, our shields will fail." Sarah nodded. "That's where the second part of the plan comes in. We're not alone out here. The Zine Resistance has been sending us intelligence and offering help. It's time we accepted that offer." She brought up another holographic display showing the locations of Zine settlements and resistance cells throughout the surrounding systems. "We coordinate with them. While we're engaging the Krellian fleet, the Zine launch strikes against military bases and supply depots throughout the sector. The Empire will have to divide their forces. Some of these ships will be pulled away to deal with rebellions on their conquered worlds." Commander Vasquez looked at the displays thoughtfully. "We're not just fighting a battle, we're starting a revolution." "Exactly," Sarah confirmed. "The Empire has maintained control through fear. They've convinced every conquered species that resistance is hopeless. We're going to prove them wrong. When the subject species see that humans can fight the Empire and survive, it will inspire rebellions across dozens of worlds." The message. Sarah returned to the bridge and opened a communication channel. But this time, she was not contacting the Krellian fleet. Using the encrypted frequencies provided by the Zine Resistance, she broadcast a message across multiple systems. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human vessel Defiance. For too long, the Krellian Empire has ruled through fear and violence. They believe their